Dust devils danced across the plains, mirroring the restless energy of young Jonas and Micah. They were barely more than boys, their faces smudged with dirt and dreams as big as the Montana sky. They'd sworn a blood oath, a bond thicker than any blood relation. Brothers till the end, Micah had declared, pressing his hand to Jonas's, a small cut blooming on each palm. They shared everything. Tall tales around crackling campfires, stolen sips of whiskey from Micah's pa's still, and the unwavering belief that they were destined for greatness. The frontier was their playground, a place to test their courage and carve out a legend. They envisioned themselves as heroes, protectors of the innocent, their names whispered with respect in every saloon from Dakota to the Rio Grande. Little did they know, the path to legend was paved with choices, some shimmering with gold, others stained with blood. The innocent dreams of youth are soon to be tested by the harsh realities of frontier justice. Time moved like the wind, sometimes a gentle breeze, other times a raging storm. Jonas and Micah grew into men, their youthful dreams slowly solidifying into reality. They weren't just boys playing hero anymore. They were becoming legends in their own right. There was the time they saved Mrs. Abernathy's prize-winning mare from a pack of coyotes, Jonas's quick thinking with a lasso and Micah's sharpshooting skills turning the tide. Then there was the daring rescue of the trapped miners, where they crawled through collapsing tunnels, risking their lives to bring those men back to the sunlight. Every act of bravery, every selfless deed, added another layer to their growing reputation. They became known throughout the territory. People said they were blessed by the spirits. Some said they were invincible. But legends, like all things, can be fragile, and the seeds of their undoing were already being sown. The turning point came like a sudden blizzard, blinding and unforgiving. It started with whispers, hushed conversations in dimly lit saloons. Micah's mom was sick, real sick. The doctor in town demanded a fortune, more than Micah could ever hope to earn honestly. Desperation gnawed at him, a relentless hunger that clouded his judgment. Then came the gambling. Card became Micah's curse. Hoping for a quick fix, he fell deep into debt. Now the whispers turned to threats. The federal gold train, a symbol of wealth and security, became an irresistible temptation. It was a reckless, desperate plan, born of love and fear. The decision weighed on Micah, a heavy burden that stole his sleep. He knew it was wrong, that would shatter everything he and Jonas had built, but he saw no other way. He had to save his ma, he had to clear his debts. He told himself it was for the best, a means to an end. But deep down, he knew he was sealing his fate and endangering his brother. The robbery itself was a blur of gunfire, shouting, and the clatter of gold bars. Micah, masked and desperate, felt a cold dread grip his heart. It was over quickly, brutally. He escaped with the gold, but the cost was higher than he imagined. Then silence. Micah vanished like smoke in the wind. Jonas returned from a cattle drive to find his world shattered. Accusations flew, suspicion poisoning the air. How could his brother, his blood, do such a thing? The betrayal cut deep, a wound that refused to heal. He replayed their life together, searching for clues he'd missed, signs of the darkness that now consumed Micah. All that remained was confusion and a profound sense of loss. He felt like half of himself had been ripped away, leaving an emptiness that echoed through his soul. He vowed to understand, to find out why. Years bled into each other, harsh and unforgiving. The name Jonas, once synonymous with heroism, became associated with the stain of Micah's crime. He couldn't escape the whispers, the sidelong glances. To outrun the shadow of betrayal, Jonas embraced a new identity, a bounty hunter. He became a man of few words, his eyes hardened by years of tracking down outlaws. He honed his skills, becoming the best tracker in the West, feared and respected in equal measure. Each successful capture, each bounty claimed, was a small victory over the darkness that threatened to consume him. But the ghost of Micah still haunted him, a constant reminder of what he had lost. He buried his pain deep, layering it with grit and determination. The once bright-eyed boy was gone, replaced by a man driven by a single purpose: to find the truth, no matter the cost. He didn't hunt for the money. He hunted for answers. The federal agent, a slick man in a tailored suit, found Jonas in a dusty saloon, nursing a whiskey and staring into the abyss. He slid a wanted poster across the table. Micah's face stared back, older, weathered, but still recognizable. Micah Bell, the agent said, his voice smooth as oil, robbed another train, this time a lot more valuable. Jonas's hand tightened around his glass. I don't work those jobs anymore. The agent smiled, a predatory gleam in his eyes. This isn't just any job, Jonas. This is personal, dead or alive. The reward is substantial, enough to set you up for life. He paused, letting the offer sink in. Besides, he added, leaning closer, think of the closure it would bring. You owe it to yourself. Jonas hesitated. He had spent years trying to forget Micah, but now, fate was offering him a chance to confront the past. With a heavy sigh, he accepted the poster. The hunt was on. Jonas followed the trail, a winding path etched across the unforgiving landscape. Each clue was a whisper from the past, a fleeting glimpse into Micah's life since the robbery. He found a discarded poker chip in a dusty ghost town, a reminder of Micah's gambling addiction. Further on, he discovered a half-finished wooden toy near a burned-out homestead, hinting at a softer side, a possible attempt at redemption. He spoke to weary travelers, saloon keepers, and desperate farmers, piecing together fragments of Micah's journey. Some said he was a ruthless outlaw. Others claimed he was a changed man, helping those in need. The stories clashed, painting a confusing portrait of a man torn between two worlds. The more Jonas learned, the more conflicted he became. The clear-cut image of a villain was fading, replaced by a blurry reflection of the brother he once knew. The simplicity of the dead or alive bounty began to crumble. The sun beat down on Jonas as he crested a final ridge. Below, nestled in a valley, lay a small, unassuming settlement. Smoke curled from chimneys, children played in the dusty streets, and life seemed to hum with a quiet normalcy. This was it. This was where Micah had been hiding. He rode slowly into town, his hand resting on the butt of his revolver. The townsfolk eyed him warily, their faces etched with hardship and suspicion. He spotted Micah almost immediately, not the hardened criminal he expected, but a man tending to a vegetable garden, his face lined with weariness but also a strange sense of peace. He was laughing with a young girl, his calloused hands gently guiding her. It was a scene of domestic tranquility, a far cry from the outlaw he had been hunting. Jonas felt a pang of confusion, a knot tightening in his gut. This wasn't the ending he had envisioned. Jonas dismounted, his spurs crunching on the dusty ground. Micah saw him, his eyes widening in recognition. The joy he had been sharing with the little girl vanished, replaced by a weary resignation. He gently steered the girl towards her mother, then walked slowly to meet Jonas. "Jonas," he said, his voice raspy. "I knew this day would come." Jonas's voice was cold, devoid of emotion. "You robbed a train, Micah." "Again." Micah sighed, running a hand through his graying hair. "It's not what you think, Jonas. I never touched that gold." He looked Jonas in the eyes, pleading for understanding. "I robbed the first train to save my ma, but the doctor was a crook. He took the money and ran, and my ma died anyway." He paused, his voice thick with grief. This time it was to help this town. They're starving, Jonas. The railroad is taking everything." He was talking fast, eager to convince Jonas of his changed heart. "But someone else got to the gold first. I swear it." Micah led Jonas away from the settlement, towards a secluded grove of trees. He began to recount the events following the first robbery, the robbery that had started it all. *flashback*, Micah, guilt-ridden, tried to anonymously return the gold to the train company, leaving it hidden near the tracks. But a band of ruthless outlaws stumbled upon it, stealing it for themselves. He tried to track them down, but they were too fast, too cunning. He had failed. He couldn't return the gold, and his ma was gone. The weight of his actions crushed him. He spent years wandering, haunted by his mistakes, trying to find ways to atone. He helped families rebuild after fires, delivered medicine to remote settlements, and offered protection to vulnerable travelers. He couldn't undo the past, but he could try to make the future a little brighter, one good deed at a time. He never stopped regretting his actions, nor the consequences that followed. Back in the present, Jonas stood silently, wrestling with Micah's story. The bounty hunter's resolve, once unshakable, began to crumble. He saw the genuine remorse in Micah's eyes, the weariness etched on his face. He remembered the blood oath they had sworn, the unwavering loyalty they had promised each other. "And the train you robbed this time?" Jonas finally asked, his voice softer now. Micah shook his head. "I didn't. I swear, Jonas, I didn't. I heard about the gold shipment, and I thought maybe I could finally make things right, help this town. But someone else beat me to it. Someone meaner, someone more ruthless." He looked at Jonas imploringly. "You have to believe me." Jonas stared at Micah, his mind racing. He was torn between his duty and his loyalty, between the law and his blood brother. The choice was tearing him apart. Suddenly, the sound of approaching horses shattered the tense silence. The federal agent, accompanied by a posse, rode into the settlement, their faces grim. Well, the agent sneered, spotting Jonas and Micah. "Looks like you found him, Jonas. Good work." Jonas stood his ground, his hand hovering near his revolver. "He says he didn't take the gold." The agent laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Don't tell me you're believing his lies. He's a criminal, Jonas. Always has been, always will be. Now, step aside and let us take him in." Micah stepped forward, placing a hand on Jonas's arm. "It's all right, Jonas. I understand." But Jonas could see the fear in his eyes, the resignation to a fate he knew was unjust. "Where's the gold, Micah?" the agent demanded, his voice dripping with menace. "Don't play coy with me. We know you have it." Micah looked Jonas in the eyes and said, "I don't know where it is." Jonas realized the agent wasn't interested in justice. He was interested in the gold, and he would do anything to get it. A cold dread washed over Jonas. He knew what he had to do. "I believe him," Jonas said, his voice ringing with newfound conviction. He drew his revolver, aiming it not at Micah, but at the federal agent. "He doesn't have the gold, and you know it." A shocked silence fell over the settlement. The agent's face contorted with rage. "You're making a mistake, Jonas. A big one." "No," Jonas replied, his eyes unwavering. "I'm finally doing what's right." The agent signaled to his posse. "Get them." Gunfire erupted, shattering the peace of the settlement. Jonas and Micah fought side by side, a familiar dance of skill and bravery. They took cover behind wagons and buildings, protecting the innocent townsfolk from the crossfire. It was a desperate battle, a fight for survival against overwhelming odds. The blood oath that had bound them as boys was now tested in the crucible of violence. This was it, one last chance at redemption, one last chance to fight for what they believed in. As the battle raged on, Micah noticed the agent was focused on reaching the town's small bank. He realized the agent believed the gold was hidden there. With a burst of speed, Micah charged toward the bank, intent on stopping him. The agent, seeing Micah approach, raised his rifle. Before Jonas could react, a shot rang out. Micah stumbled, clutching his chest. He collapsed to the ground, his eyes meeting Jonas's. The fighting stopped, a stunned silence descending upon the settlement. The agent stood over Micah, a cruel smile on his face. "Should have stayed out of my way," he said, before turning his attention back to the bank. Jonas, consumed by rage and grief, rushed to Micah's side. "Micah, stay with me," he pleaded, his voice choked with emotion. Micah coughed, blood trickling from his lips. "Jonas, I tried." He reached out, his hand grasping Jonas's. "Protect them." His eyes fluttered closed, and his hand went limp. Micah was gone. A primal roar escaped Jonas's lips. He stood, his face a mask of fury, his eyes burning with righteous anger. He turned his attention to the agent, who was now frantically trying to break into the bank's vault. "You're not getting away with this," Jonas growled, his voice low and menacing. He advanced on the agent, his revolver drawn. The remaining members of the posse, seeing the tide had turned, scattered and fled. The agent, realizing he was alone, spun around, his eyes wide with fear. A tense standoff ensued. Jonas and the agent faced each other, the fate of the settlement hanging in the balance. Jonas knew he had to end this, not just for himself, but for Micah, for the town, for everyone who had been wronged by the agent's greed and corruption. He had a choice to make, one that would define the rest of his life. Would he become a cold-blooded killer, or would he find a way to bring the agent to justice without sacrificing his own soul? Instead of firing, Jonas holstered his weapon. He looked at the townsfolk, their faces etched with fear and hope. He couldn't become a monster, not like the agent. "It's over," he announced, his voice resonating with authority. He killed Micah in cold blood. He was after the gold for himself. He turned to the agent, who was still frozen in fear. "I'm taking you in," Jonas said, "but not for robbery. For murder." Jonas used his lasso, expertly tying up the agent. The townsfolk, emboldened by Jonas's actions, stepped forward to help. They secured the agent and began to tend to the wounded. The choice was now clear. Drag Micah's body back for the bounty, cementing his fearsome reputation, or let him be remembered as a hero, a man who sacrificed himself for others. The first choice would be easy, financially rewarding, but soul-crushing. The second would be difficult, perhaps even dangerous, but it would honor Micah's memory and allow Jonas to live with himself. His decision would define him as a man. Jonas made his decision. He sent a message to the authorities, exposing the agent's corruption and detailing Micah's heroic sacrifice. He made sure the truth was known, even if it meant facing scrutiny and doubt. He stayed in the settlement long enough to help them rebuild, to ensure they had enough supplies to survive the winter. He listened to their stories about Micah, learning about the countless acts of kindness he had performed, the lives he had touched. He realized that Micah had found redemption, not in wealth or fame, but in selfless service to others. The townsfolk erected a simple wooden cross over Micah's grave, a testament to his bravery and compassion. They didn't remember him as an outlaw, but as a hero, a protector, a friend. Jonas knew he had made the right choice. He had honored Micah's memory and challenged the traditional notions of justice, proving that even a flawed man could find redemption and leave a lasting legacy of good. The old legends were gone, but a new one was being written. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. Jonas mounted his horse, ready to leave the settlement behind. He glanced back at Micah's grave, a silent promise etched on his face. He would never forget his blood brother, nor the lessons he had learned. He rode off into the sunset, a solitary figure against the vast landscape. He was no longer the hardened bounty hunter, driven by revenge and bitterness. He was a changed man, forever marked by his experience. He carried the weight of his decision, the knowledge that justice wasn't always black and white, that loyalty could be a complicated and dangerous thing. He knew the road ahead would be long and difficult, but he also knew that he was finally on the right path. He would continue to fight for what was right, to protect the innocent, and to honor the memory of Micah, the outlaw who became a hero. The frontier was still a wild and unforgiving place, but Jonas was ready to face it, armed with a new understanding of loyalty, justice, and the enduring power of redemption. The legend of Jonas and Micah would live on.